We on?
Yes.
It's saying it's being pushed, and yes, it's being live streamed. Yes, we're good. All right, I will call to order this meeting of the Bond Oversight Committee for February 26th, 2026. And I'm Julie Hoy, the mayor.
And Mike Herron, community member.
Aaron Kimsey, City of Salem.
Rob Rubnack, Parks Planning Manager for the City of Salem.
Aaron Edelman, engineering staff.
Brian Banta, engineering staff.
Brian Martin, Public Works Director.
Mickey Barney, City Councilor.
Kelly Blashman, Budget Office. Is, do we know Councilor Yoga's? She said that she would attend, but I have not gotten an email from her, so maybe she might come a little later. We have a quorum, right? Yes, we do have a quorum.
You do.
All right, we need approval of the January 22nd, 2026 meetings.
I noticed a correction needed on there.
Shoot, please let me know.
You had turned me into Schrodinger's committee member, where I'm both present and absent at the same time.
Oh, wow, that's a skill, Mike.
I was there.
Okay, thank you for noting that. I will make sure that you were there on the, so you can.
Physically checked out mentally.
I've been signaling something to me, I'm not sure.
You can make a motion as amended and I will.
I make a motion as amended. That we approve the minutes.
Do we have a
As a
second?
second, as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? Moving on then to action items. We're gonna skip Josh because he's running a little bit late for good reason, and on to McKay Park and Fields. And
Yeah,
there you go.
all right. So the agenda item is true. I'm here to talk about McKay funding request, but in order to do that, like it'd be appropriate to talk about the paths and trails bond bucket, just to remind folks where we are with that particular project funding. I presented on this before, but it's been a while, so I wanted to kind of recap for those that may have forgotten. So as a reminder, we have approximately 3.75 miles of paths in parks that are in the poor to very poor condition. And as funded through the bond, we have $4.1 million dedicated to making those improvements. And so this next slide, one of the things that we looked at with the paths and trails throughout the parks is the condition. And so we wanted to clearly identify which parks were kind of in the worst shape from that standpoint. So as you can see here, this is all the parks that have either poor or very poor paths and trails. And what we're talking about, as a reminder, this is existing hard paths, whether they be concrete or asphalt. This does not include soft paths. And it does not include building new paths where they don't currently exist. So it's really focused on maintenance and bringing some of those efficiencies back up. And so I've highlighted McKay School Park on here. So it's kind of middle of the pack as far as its condition. And so just has to kind of keep that in mind as we move forward. So as you may recall or not, the condition was only one component of how we wanted to score these paths and trails. So we looked at, in order to get a really good picture of how we prioritized the different parks, we looked at park classification, park utilization, the hazard assessment, which was the previous slide, is 35% of the score. So it's pretty heavy. It's a pretty heavy score, but we also wanted to include equity into that. And so, this group approved kind of moving forward with this criteria, and then we went through and scored all the parks against this criteria. And so in doing that, we came up with this slide shows the top 30 parks based on that prioritization. And so you can see McKay is towards the top of the list, scoring 84. And I wanted to point out, as you guys know, I've come to this group in the past to look at or request funding for other parks, as we've been doing improvements with, whether it be the playground upgrades or we had sports courts upgrades as well. And so we said, well, we're going to be in these parks causing mess. There's some efficiencies. We have a contractor that can make these improvements. And so you guys agreed to fund those efforts. And so Hoover, Morningside, Highlands, Sunbird, Livingston were all completed with that request and those contractors. And actually, one thing I wanted to point out is even though I came to you all and asked for funding to be transferred from the paths bucket into those projects, we actually only transferred money for Morningside, 75,000. We ended up not needing the money in the other parks projects because of good bids, low use of our contingency, and so we were able to fully fund the identified improvements and then also do the paths and trails. And so essentially just kind of reserve that money. So we actually haven't, even though you guys, I came to you and said I need it, you guys said go for it. And then as it turns out, for example, we were able to complete the sports courts program. All five parks that were identified in the bond have been completed, including the path work, and we still ended up with savings overall in that program, which kind of that's going to allude to Josh's conversation about how we handle savings. So I wanted to point out here, so I like to have at the top of the list. We have large parks, Minto, Brown, Riverfront, and Bush Pasture that have significant amount of paths and some of them in very poor condition, all of them in very poor condition. And so I just wanted to point out that we could spend a lot of money in those three parks and then probably spend at the jeopardy of the other kind of neighborhood parks. And so we really wanted to just put a kind of a governor on those large area parks to say, hey, let's not have those take all the funds when we have other needs in some of the neighborhoods that we feel like are as important. So our proposal is that we say 500,000 for those large parks each. So 1.5 million total. And that still allows us to do the other parks on the list and have sufficient funding to address those. So any questions so far?
I just wanted to clarify, but that's not a decision this committee needs to make today. That's just your recommendation.
Yeah, not a decision point. That's just our recommendation. We can bring that forward later and confirm that.
The top five, just Bush, Walth Marine, Riverfront, and Minto? Are those when you said five large parks? Is that
three large parks.
three large parks?
Minto, Riverfront, and Bush.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So one thing that we wanted to do was kind of our next step in moving forward with this bucket of money is to identify project packages. So we went down the list of priority and tried to package parks that made sense. So either like geographically they're in the same area or funding wise, you didn't want to create really large project where maybe you couldn't get it as competitive bidding. So we went down the list and created A, B, C, D, E, 5 groups of parks that we want that we're suggesting that we move forward with. So Inglewood, which as you recall is at the top of the list, and then Clark Creek, those two projects are what we're recommending for group A, and then so on as you move down the list, we package together group B and group C. I wanted to point out some of these parks have improvements that are needed and required within the park, but then we also have frontage paths that technically aren't part of the park, but they're in poor condition and probably in order, we wanted to make sure we could get people to the park. And so some of these areas have ADA issues getting to the specific parks, and then the pathways getting to them. So the picture on the right is a picture of Inglewood. And just as an example, this is a a frontage path in the right of way. And it has some deficiencies. And so our recommendation is that we use the funding here to not only repair what's needed inside the park, but also any of the deficiencies that we may have adjacent. So whether it be ADA ramps and or these pathways. So I've highlighted in orange what that means. And what you're seeing here is just, it's really watered down. So it's just the path, like to construct an improved path. That's all we're looking at there. And then you have a project total cost that it looks like it's inflated, but that includes all of the stuff that you can't see. So, mobilization, ADA ramp design, all the design that goes into it. We will run into some archaeological issues where we have to just do the right, make sure we go in there and do the right process to make sure we're not having any impacts. So the total cost is what you see there, and it includes all that's needed to get those projects to construction and built.
What is above Inglewood?
It's Inglewood again,
Oh,
yeah. So
sorry.
like
That's okay, thing.
so some of these, I kind of wanted to point that out. Like Inglewood, the park path itself is pretty minimal, but the frontage path has taken up quite a bit of that funding. That's not always the case though. So like Nelson on Group B has a pretty large amount of path work inside the park, and then has minor frontage work. So it's kind of a mixed bag of what, depending on what's there and what's needed and whether it has ramps or not. But we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. It lists the other two groups, D and E, and then I kind of buried the headline here on the bottom. The packages that's underneath that top.
I'm so sorry. This
That's
is,
right.
yeah.
So
Fine.
the packages that we're showing on the screen here, A through E, totals 1.9 million. And then we have the large area parks that we're proposing 1.5 for those three. And then that gives us 3.4 million. And then the remaining funds that would get us to that 4.1 million there are some parks that aren't shown in these groups that have additional work coming. So the Royal Oaks, Aldridge, Stephen Sky, these parks all have playgrounds. And so rather than piece them out into one of these groups, we've decided we're going to deal with those like we have the others, where we know we have work going on in the park with the playground. And we'll deal with those paths when we get to that part with those improvements. So long story short, this fund is looking pretty good to be able to fund all of the deficient paths, in addition to doing the frontages and the ADA ramps. Oh, right, Steve Sky does not have a playground. I put it on there for a reason though. Okay, my bad. That was not a playground. I was looking at something else. So if we go to the next slide, is that reason why we're here is to ask for McKay Park. So McKay has paths and trails improvements that are needed. At this point in time, we feel like that based on where our engineer's estimate is, we're gonna need additional funding to cover that portion of improvements that would technically be part of the paths and trails bucket, to the tune of 106,400. And so the reason for that is we are currently, with the current budget for McKay, we're actually about $300,000 over budget. So this 156,400 would cut that deficit in half. And we feel like it's appropriate because we are making these improvements that would come out of that bucket. So that leaves us roughly 150,000 still short. But at this time, I'm not asking for any money from savings because we want to wait to bid this project. We have been getting pretty good bids still. As an example, Riverfront Park Playground just recently bid. Our estimate was 2.9 and the parent low bidder was 2.3.
Oh, wow.
So we're still getting a lot of interest at 5 bidders, I believe. And similar, like I said before, I came to you and asked for additional funds for those other projects and we ended up not having to need it. But at this point, in time, we would feel more comfortable if we knew we had the ability to utilize that pathwork funding. And then check on where the bids come in and then evaluate, do we need to ask for some savings from the bond? Or maybe we don't need to, we can address it, if we get really good bids. So. Any questions?
I was wondering, are there any other buckets of money that would apply to these frontage paths? Because I'm thinking of the ADA requirements, the ramp requirements. Are there any other funding sources to help with that? Because I realize they improve the access to the park, but they're also used for other things.
I mean, I think the answer is yes. I mean, we have other bond buckets, so we do have a sidewalk. Not the infill, but there's a sidewalk replacement that is also competing with sidewalks all over town. And they're working through a process to identify, what's the priority and where do they want to focus those funds.
What about grants or funds from ODOT or something or other? I was thinking of the requirements for the ADA requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any for that right now. I mean, we do submit grant requests to ODOT for different bed and bike paths and different things, and we have some grant applications that we're expecting to get funding back on. That criteria and the ranking and the competition is pretty steep.
Sure.
And this would be one where we haven't, for these parks, I don't think we have any grant applications in for these specifically. So,
Okay,
so
I was
it-
just curious.
yeah, it would fall back to that bucket Aaron's talking about, which is the
The bond bucket.
bond
Yeah.
buckets.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Competing, yeah.
sure, sure.
And I will say, previous projects that we've already completed, Sumter was one of them that had a playground and it had some deficient ramps. And it was brought to our attention that they needed to be addressed, and it was like, well, technically, we're not required to do that, but it feels kind of icky to not.
Sure.
We're there.
Sure.
And so we actually did do those replacements, because we had the funding available, we were there, so it made sense. There was a few others too. I feel like Highland had some ramp upgrades that we were able to address with the project. So we've kind of been trying to do the right thing as we come into the neighborhood and go, oh gosh, like I said, it feels weird to not make these improvements when we know people have to cross that path to get to the playground. And we did it at Hoover as well. There is a gentleman that's been pretty active in communicating with staff about ADA deficiencies throughout town. And it feels like he's been honing in on projects where we're doing work. And saying, hey, you're there, it's not ADA, what are you gonna do about it? So we've been trying to just be smart about it and make sure that we don't have to come back later and do something. So
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you for thinking of that. For access. Okay.
I was gonna say, I think it would be helpful if we could also pull up on the screen kind of maybe the Google map or something that shows the park.
again,
McKay, and shows where these are at. Those are good snippets of exactly where it is, but it's hard to identify where it is on the park as a whole. Is that possible,
Hey.
Kelly?
Yes, it is. I'm doing it. I'm just not as fast as you guys are. I'm gonna go to the Google machine.
yeah, if you go to Google Maps and then just search McKay Park.
Yes. Oh, I'm in Bing, but Google. Oh, no. You know what, Mr. Kinsey? I'm just gonna do this. Really, I think. What do we have to do now? There we go.
Oh, geez.
I like that.
No,
It's still.
there we go. That one, there we go.
Geez.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron pulled that up. I'll just quickly follow up in the last meeting. We have confirmed the food truck cart plugin is a 50 amp, but I wanted to follow up.
Good call, good recall. Good recall.
You can always go down, but you can't go up. That's for sure.
And then it's.
You're found.
So the areas you were, maybe you just kind of talk through where the improvements are going.
Yeah.
And then what these areas where you're at the site.
Yeah, so it's essentially this whole run of path that goes from east to west through the park all the way up to the parking lot.
Okay,
That was what was identified on that previous sheet. And so in some cases, we're widening the path and actually thickening the section. So it's a more of a multi-use path, where we have the food truck access with a thicker section, so we are doing that work. But then in other areas, it's just standard walk. You can't, actually, it's kind of giving me a clearer picture of things. So I mean, yeah, this walk is all original to the park, so it's got a lot of use.
Ask it, Brian.
yeah.
You want to ask about this over here?
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
know what that is.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
you don't know why that's there?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
That stays.
so yes and no. So the new plan for the park has a shelter that is going to encompass this area right in here. So this will go away. It'll be demoed and removed and replaced with a shelter. This over here was originally part of the project to be removed and replaced with turf and trees. That's still the goal and the hope, but because we were so far overfunded, we decided to pull it out as an alternate. So the 1.77 that I showed on the slide for this project includes doing that work. So that the 150 that were short would account for removing this and replacing it with turf and trees. If we get higher bids than expected, then we would reserve that work and potentially not do it depending on funding. And that was something we did pretty late. It was always a desire to get rid of it. And then when we saw where we were tracking with the budget, we decided to pull it out as an alternate.
Was that originally a playground or pond?
Yes, that is the original playground for the park, and if you can imagine, there was a school age section and a young child section. There was actually a bridge between the two. It was, we have some old photos that look like it was quite a facility. But it is, I think we would all agree it's time for it to go.
It's
Yeah.
great.
So the.
I see a ramp up there.
Yeah,
So the curving around it is elevated.
Okay,
So it's actually, it probably does go below grade, but yeah, Aaron maybe can get a
I thought I could zoom.
photo. It's quite something.
okay.
We actually had the skate park designer for Deer Park look at it to see if it could be reused as a skate park, but that's not feasible.
It might be obvious to you all, but these are ramps. These are
Yeah, it's all
slopes.
sloping.
Mhm.
It's a very unusual.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, I don't know. Potential for weird activities, you know,
Mhm.
just gotta go.
Yeah, we don't disagree. And that's gonna be our goal.
Couple of benches in there, I think have been burned and all that kind of stuff.
I think one of the things we talked about is if we don't get good bids and we aren't able to fund it, then we could look at potentially with city staff going in there and readdressing what materials in there now.
It's very,
Inside.
very old engineered wood fiber, which is the surfacing we use in playgrounds, and so it's decomposed, so
Yeah.
it's not a great situation.
But
Excellent.
I think my suggestion or my recommendation would be, let's get our bids in, let's evaluate, and if it really is a high priority, then we have the opportunity for the bond savings to address that issue, and then we could just be done with it and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing your screen? This is my fault because I gave it to you. It's not being shared.
I wonder if you could zoom out and kind of show where the restrooms at and where the parking improvements and stuff like this, just as a reminder for everyone.
Yeah, so
Including me.
I mentioned the shelters here. The new restrooms are gonna be installed here. That's the 2 Portland Loos. And then the project includes regrading and new irrigation of these two fields. So that's really the main part of the project. And so then we'll be, like I said, improving the pathway, because of the shelter and the food truck location, we are having to bring in a new electrical service over here from Hollywood down here, which is adding to the cost that wasn't originally part of the budget. The new playground, it's what's already been built is up here, which replaced what was down here.
In the other picture, I thought, don't go back to it, but I thought I saw, is there more parking being added?
No new parking being added.
However, I just want on that one, the existing ADA stalls near where the Portland Winds are gonna go are deficient, and so we are correcting that.
Mm,
And so if you saw something in the visual, that's probably why.
okay.
Want me to share it? No, I thought you
People are watching on the online, so go to the,
tell me what to do.
yeah,
I mean, I think that kind of helps, that takes care of like the overall.
you're wanting that. No, I'm so sorry, this is my fault. This is, I'm not the tech help in the finance department. Clearly. Yeah, great.
So Aaron, just so I can wrap my head, big picture
Mhm.
around what you're presenting here, and we're not acting on anything, it's to think about it. It is not. It's not deviating from the scorecard that we put together.
Right.
It is maybe prioritizing might not be the right word, but it's allocating specific dollars to the big part. Making sure that we're addressing all the others and then moving some of the money that may have been soaked up by the big parts into getting the frontages done and potentially, you know, sort of a proactive heads up that we would like to also allocate if it's there. McKay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I
got lost in the sauce there.
Yeah, this is a park that needs pathway improvement.
Yeah.
And we would do that regardless. So we're just asking for that money to be pulled from the path bucket into the McKay project, so we can just do it now.
Just accelerating.
Accelerating it for that, similar to what we did with the other.
Just to conclude the discussion about the old playground facilities, I wanna just mention, the desire to demo those and restore lawn and trees is not something that we just came up with as staff. That's part of the project description that's on the bond website. So it is very much consistent with the original intention of the project.
Last question. So we talked about we're 300 over, and my recollection of a lot of that was from the utilities, from electrical service and.
There wasn't really, well, half of it's for the paths and trails. That's not currently in the McKay budget. And then the remainder is not one single thing, but it's just kind of a combination of all the things. So like the electrical, the new service, we need a new irrigation controller. And we are, in a sense, being a little conservative with our pricing just because we don't want to be the low bidder. So we're looking at, prices that we received for similar work at Gear, doing the fields and the irrigation work. So it's kind of a combination of just making sure we have competitive pricing. The shelter, I think maybe I don't have the numbers. I guess I have the new numbers, but I'm not sure what they were compared to the original budget. But like the Portland Loos are not cheap.
Yeah.
Although we had a budget for bathrooms, so that's addressed there. So it's just kind of spread across. Yeah.
But we haven't bid it yet, Aaron, so we'll.
No, yeah, this is gonna be going to bid in early March. And so potentially might come back in the April meeting and say, hey. We're over budget, we need some more money, or I may not come back at all because we'll be fine. And we can get it all done.
Either way, we'll let you guys know.
Yeah.
Can you zoom out one more time?
Yes, ma'am.
I know Mike said it was the last question. That was his last question.
That is something easy I can do.
A little more into the, who laughed at me? There you go.
That was me.
Okay.
You guys probably know, but there's a path over here. Along this fence,
Oh, yeah.
that people walk on. Was that in part of a consideration? I've been on a volunteer crew a couple of times Trimming back the blackberries and.
It's a soft trailer.
Yes, that soft trail is not directly going to be improved by the project. Although I can tell you, I've had conversations with two of the adjacent property owners, so I've heard a little bit about their concerns. The project's going to have is going to use that parking lot as a staging area. And we are going to have that trail closed for the duration of the project during the construction.
Thank you.
So I think I need like a vote on the use of the fund. Do I need a vote for that?
You do.
For the bucket?
I think that would be helpful. It doesn't have to go to council because all we're doing is just allocating it for that use. We're just combining it, but I think it'd be great to have that on the record.
Do we need a motion or? That'd be great. I will move that we move forward with the proposed allocation for McKay Park. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's anybody?
That's fine.
Motion and a second by Mike. And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nope. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
good
it.
job. That's gonna be so nice out there.
Yeah. 1:1.
Yeah. Next up is. Would you like Josh to step in? Because we.
Sure.
Bond savings and premium use policy.
I apologize for my tardiness. I ended up, they didn't have a forum, so I came here. It worked out. So what we did as staff is we took the discussion, I think it was at the November meeting, on the bond premium project savings discussion. We formed it into a draft policy for your consideration. And I'd like to be clear that this is just a draft policy, right? So we took that discussion, formed it into a policy, and we're welcome to feedback. We also, if you want to just provide general comments and have us come back at a future meeting, we're open to that also. Our intent is after you're comfortable with it, the action would be to recommend it to city council for adoption, just to codify kind of the process. This piece is still new to us, because of the combined nature of the bond projects. In the past, it was a library bond. If there's premium and savings, it's very clear. It's for the library or police station or streets. But the combined nature, it added some nuance. And I don't think we're going probably away from this kind of combined structure. So I think this will set some precedent. So happy to walk through it if that would be helpful. Okay, sure. So at the top, just the purpose and scope, it's just outlining what we're trying to do with it. Again, if you look at policy guidelines, the prioritization of funds, the primary priority, the allocation bond premium, interest earning and project savings is to ensure the completion of all projects as promised in the bond measure. So we're not trying to go outside of the bond scope. We're not trying to do anything different, just within that bond scope. However, if there is additional savings on projects above and beyond, we want to be able to take advantage of those, similar to other bond projects. The most notable is the 2008 Streets and Bridges bond that landed at just the right time to be able to realize quite a few savings and add lots of projects to that bond measure. The second priority would be to enhance existing projects. So it's still not going outside the scope of the bond projects. But an example would be, that McKay Park we were just looking at. If we identify projects, everything else appears to be matched. Maybe look at an enhancement to that particular park or something like that. And then the third priority would be to fund new projects within the scope of the bond as the resources allow. So the actual legal language of the bond measure is pretty broad for what could be allowed as a use. But that's why we're trying to prioritize existing project current scope, enhancing projects that are in the scope, and then the third priority would be additional projects. Any questions on those three priority levels? Do those feel appropriate?
I think they feel appropriate. I think on the first one, and this is the lawyer nitpick. I don't know that I would say all projects.
Okay,
You see something like identified, or how would you say it?
Well, it's qualified by how the sentence finishes, but
Oh,
completion
yes,
of projects as promised in the bond.
Okay,
And we've kind of gone around with what does that mean, like with the, with the Peace Plaza and stuff like that, so
Mhm.
just say, give us some flexibility there.
so just say projects as promised.
That's really nitpicky, but.
No, that was good. That's
It's good
good.
to have a lawyer in there.
Yes.
so the thing that I'm trying to understand, and maybe you did say it, is so we have funding that's found leftover savings. If we have several projects, how are we going to evaluate which ones would surface to the top? So like, is there gonna be a mechanism in this policy to make decisions on which would be the appropriate one to select if we're unable to do all?
Yeah, so I think what you just depicted would be the worst case scenario, right? Where there's not enough funding to complete all the projects and we're actually, just like Aaron said in the McKay bid is, hey, this is bid as an alternate because we're not sure about the cost structure. So we want to be able to pull it back if we need to. I think that would be a discussion here. So that's really
Okay.
if you're trying to trim projects and trim scope.
It was more if you were wanting to have in the policy some, a standard of how this committee would make that selection process.
Got it. Okay.
And, or whether it's needed. It might not be needed. It may be just that we talk about it and make that evaluation and vote. But I'm just wondering if there's any thoughts on parameters, so it helps facilitate that?
Yeah, so maybe we could add, under that prioritization of funds is something about if there's competing priorities to bring it back. I'm not sure that will always be the case because
Yeah.
As we're working through the bond program, we're not usually pitting projects against each other at the same time. It's more just walking through them, and I'm not sure we're gonna have that instance, but we could.
Then if it's not needed, if you don't think that that's gonna be the risk, I just was thinking ahead in the sense of if it is a risk, should we have something that helps guide us as a policy, especially if we're taking this policy to the council to make the decision, because then that would give us some bearing on how we would do it as a committee.
I think it speaks to just the context around the decisions, right? Because right now, we're gonna give an update on where we're at with the second issuance. If we don't get any premium from that issuance,
And we don't have to worry about it.
well, then it creates the instance where, hey, we have more uncertainty. Do we want to use up our whole bucket of funding now or save it till later in the bond? And kind of spread out that risk, similar to what we've done with the Civic Center, I think.
Yeah.
So,
It seems like that's what's happening. We keep, at the Civic Center is the good example. Like, okay, well, let's see how it goes. And then, the can gets kicked a little further and then, but we may still be in that conundrum of, okay, what is gonna be? Do we just wait on Peace Plaza completely and do nothing? Or, so those are the things I'm just trying to be ahead of them.
yeah, so I think that could maybe be another bullet point, but maybe we'll walk through the rest of it, see if there's other changes that we could bring back. Or if you're ready to move forward, then we could.
I'm ready to
continue
move
prep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just throwing it out as, should we consider?
Okay.
Isn't there a list for a lot of these already, like the sidewalk? Like a lot of these already kind of been prioritized in a way?
They've been prioritized. I think the missing piece is actually when you go out to bid and you get the information about if it's higher or lower.
Got it.
So that's the overall prioritization of the funding. The next category is just how it actually lands within the categories. So project savings should first be prioritized within the project category. So if you have a savings on a parks project, it's prioritized within the parks category. The one exception would be if we're closed out of the projects. Like right now, I think we're just about wrapped up on the fire apparatus. They have a few things that they're tying up, I think there's gonna be some project savings. So within the same project category, we're recommending some thresholds where staff can access that project savings up to $100,000 or 5% of the original budget, whichever is less. This would be something we'd bring back to the committee for an update. It also aligns with our change order threshold process. So when we have a change order on a project, that's the amount the director can authorize. It still doesn't have the funding, so that would be the mechanism where up to $100,000 from the same category could be accessed for that project.
Question on that, and actually, I think you used that same threshold in 3 different places. Is that aggregate or is that per
Ask.
ask? Yeah, because
Yeah, good question. I think it would be aggregate. It's my,
I mean, that's on my assumptions that we would want to say that that's an aggregate.
yeah. I mean, from an internal controls perspective, I don't like when people segment things to get them under a threshold, so that would not be the approach we would have. So you wouldn't have 2 asks for $75,000 on the same project without it coming back to this group. Yeah. It's a really good clarification.
You're really earning your keep.
Ready?
Does that feel like a good threshold? I mean, quite frankly, from the staff perspective, if you wanted us to come back with every ask, that would be okay also. This is just part of the discussion that you guys had back in November about trying to streamline a little bit. And this is still within project savings. So the only way this would be applied is if there was project savings in the same category.
I feel like you should move forward because why wait for 3 weeks or a month until the next meeting to get it asked if you need to make that decision and it's within a threshold? It seems like that would be a smarter thing and a timely thing.
Yep.
How many asks have we had that were over that threshold?
I don't know if there's any
I-
you haven't seen. Really. I mean, Civic Center is a little bit different.
That one's been over the threshold. There was
There haven't been that many is my point.
there's been a few.
A couple.
Like 3 years, 4 years almost.
I mean, the ideal is, you know, the bids come in under and we don't ask at all, nobody authorize any.
So why don't we just roll in money?
He's telling us these great bids.
Keep up the good news, Aaron. Yeah, roll the dice.
So that's project savings. So those are pretty isolated. So for bond premium interest earnings. Again, the priority would be used to address unanticipated expensive project overages or enhancement costs during the implementation of project or bond projects. It's also been used to pay for the administrative costs. So we have staff charging administrative costs of the bond to that as opposed to hitting project budgets. Which helps keep it really clean for those pieces. Bond premium and interest earnings can be used for project enhancements if they are included in the project footprint or directly adjacent to a project.
Mike, I have questions.
On that first bullet point,
Yes, sir.
does it make sense to actually have a prioritized list? Where it's like I deal with these kinds of things all the time where it's like, it may be used for this, but it's usually better to say, okay, the first thing off the top is, let's take care of administrative costs and then let's take care of.
Sure.
this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's
As a thought, you know, maybe a prioritized list of uses for bond premium. And not just a bucket.
I think that's definitely how we could structure it that way.
What are you talking about? It's that bullet, I think.
Oh, okay, the sub one.
Yeah, the first sub.
So you're suggesting administrative costs first and then what, and are you?
I would like some thought around, I'm just saying, like, usually if you have a list of those kinds of
It's
expenses.
much easier.
It's easier.
Kind of like what I was
That's right.
asking for.
And so it doesn't look so knowledgeable, that total.
Yeah, why did you do it
Why
that
did you
way
do it that
this
way?
time?
Well, because we put in place this policy. So this is.
I did have another question. I'm thinking about cost efficiencies. Is it always based on what we've talked about today about working on additional things like the paths, like the frontage paths and stuff? I'm thinking this enhance or expand the scope of a project is listed third, I think. I'm just thinking, does it make more sense maybe to look at some of that kind of concurrently on a project, as, yeah, if we do this while we're here right now, it saves more money than putting the money into another project. And I just didn't know. Does that make sense? I'm just not sure on this, use of project savings with this listed as third. I mean, does that mean that it has to be after adding other projects? I don't know.
I'm not sure if I'm tracking this right, but when we put this together, like we had different types of funds, so like the savings would be the easiest one to spend because it was actually, we just saved money on something.
Mhm.
And then the premium and the interest earnings, because those weren't attached to any projects or any buckets.
Mhm.
We looked at then making those over priority, so.
Oh, okay.
So under each one of these, and I think as we kind of go through, the priorities are kind of similar, it's like existing project, ask or something new. It's just we try to break it out between bucket of savings versus returns.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
But-
Clarifies it.
Yeah.
I was just curious. Okay.
Yeah, but good question. I'm happy to take feedback if we can structure it differently, make sure that flows a little bit.
What bullet were you on, Counselor? I'm so sorry.
Well, it was more looking at this as the use of project
Okay.
savings. The third bullet, yeah. This is another project.
And when we talk about project enhancements under the use of bond agreement interest earnings, there is emphasis on completing more cost effectively with the project. So when you have that economies of scale, if you're doing a sidewalk replacement project and there's another 2 panels that need to be replaced anyways, and it's gonna be a lot cheaper with that project.
Sure.
As a standalone piece.
Sure.
And also will lower future maintenance costs, right? So if you can replace the irrigation controller and it reduces water usage and future maintenance, and that's a benefit also.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure we weren't eliminating that option.
Yeah.
Okay,
Not eliminated.
okay, okay.
The way we're trying to structure it is for those things, they would come back to back here for discussion.
Okay.
And then within that, triggers for fund access would be to cover a project overages in the original budget. So for example,
On the second page, Joe.
on the second page, there's not those numbers. Like for example, on the McKay project, the Erickson fact, the bids come in higher. This removal of that structure was included in the scope of the project. We want to make sure we finish out the scopes. There would be an ask for bond premium in that case, if there's not savings available.
Don't let that happen.
Hundred percent in control.
Don't
Guy.
And then I think to the second point, address the opportunity cost, enhance the value of the project. And then also unanticipated expenses that are critical to the completion of the project. So sometimes during the project, I think the bridges were a good example where we identified throughout the project that things weren't as we thought they were. We needed more funding after the bid during the project.
But it didn't turn out to be as much as we thought because
No.
there were still overall savings for
It
it.
worked out. Yeah. And again, the approval threshold, $100,000. Relatively small. And again, that would be if there's a project overages, not the enhancement piece. So if there's an enhancement piece, it would come back to the committee. It's just, hey, the bid came back higher for the scope included in the bond. Up to $100,000 that could be administered by staff. I wanted to talk about flexibility in fund allocation a little bit. It's not super relevant at this point in the project program because we're still early, but as we get further in the program, and if there's still a large amount of premium and interest earnings sitting there, then the committee could have a discussion about which category those should be allocated to, especially if we're talking about new projects or significant enhancements.
We're getting close to halfway mark.
We're at a third.
We're at a third.
Yeah, so. Yeah, but definitely, if we get to the end of the project, you know, just like the streets and bridges bond, you know, the risk goes down as you get through the projects. There's less opportunity for project overages at that point.
May I ask a question, even though we're only a third into the project? I don't have a history of when the previous bond was done. It sounds like 2008. And that was a 10-year bond, so that ended in 18.
So, really good question. We didn't quite structure them in the same way. So this was really a 10-year bond program with projects delivered, planned out across the 10 years. I don't think it was structured the same way for the 2008 bonds or the library or the police station. The debt service certainly extends past 10 years,
Okay.
but project delivery might be more compressed. I don't know, Brian, did we have a time frame for the 2008 bond when it passed?
I know it took about 10 years. In fact, even after the 10 years, we were still doing some projects, so
Yeah,
we were able to add them in, but
Of course, the reason I'm asking
Yeah.
is already getting prepped for the possibility that when this 10-year bond ends and we have identified more infrastructure that needs to be done, thinking ahead as to when another 10-year bond might move forward to voters. Probably going to be past me, but I'm just thinking that it is something, I'm really happy with the way this is structured, with the 10 years projects identified, instead of trying to then get on top of something that is already getting away from us. I'm just saying that if we're already recognizing that when we're 2/3 through, we might already be saying these projects that will be coming up, maybe we're going to be needing to look at a bond again in 2034 or 2035 or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think that's a really good discussion for this group to have. I think there's some practical considerations. I mean, the current 10-year plan is to try to maintain that $1.20 per thousand. Over the 10 years, we would want to, if you were talking about a replacement bond and we identified projects, you'd want to authorize the next one to continue the program to maintain that $1.20.
Yes,
Just
yes.
so there's not a dip. So actually, probably in the next 2 years, we'll have a discussion about that third issuance, if we need to structure that to make it debt service heavy in the near term. Give us a little bit more runway to finish out this project program before we go for another authorization. So there's just some things we can structure to make it a little bit easier. We're also
A
having
little
to hire.
more palatable.
Yeah, palatable. I think there's going to be a conversation about what projects, what's needed, that community conversation. I certainly get departments asking for things often. And I said, hey, we don't have it in this bond, we don't have it in operating funds. It's really going to have to wait to be prioritized with the next ask.
Just setting it out there.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Jeff,
Yeah.
I'll put on my mic hat.
Let's see.
Under project savings, we say 5% of the original budget. And then on the other category, we say 5% of the project cost. So that's still not be consistent with project cost could be.
I think the intent is project budget. That's the original project.
Consistency.
It's good.
everyone.
Any other thoughts on this? Did we hit the mark? Did we get close? Do we need to take it back for more consideration?
Cleanup.
We can definitely bring it back with some cleanup.
think that might be good. I was just thinking too, as we talk about the discussions, there are things that happen in your out in the field construction, so many things in design. You have time to come back in here to talk about things, but when you're actually out there building, you may run into some of these things that would be an enhancement. That we wouldn't necessarily want to have to come back here for, so making sure we're working so that.
Thinking back to the discussion, which was, I believe you're right, I think it was in November. Right, I think this is pretty close to, at least the things that I was thinking about at that time,
Okay.
which is like. Let's have maybe a little bit of method here.
Yeah.
To how we're tracking and using these savings and premiums. Right direction.
So it feels good and we'll come back with the cherry on top with a little bit of your edit tonight and everyone else's good input. Adjust and Aaron's, yes, can't forget Aaron's. Never can. Can't forget. No.
Right, thank you, Josh. So we took care of McKay Park. We have no new items. Moving on to management update and information on the Pringle Path project. Diane Hill.
Creek Path Connection Project. So, this is my first time presenting on this project. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with the project, if that's something like that. So I was planning on kind of giving a project information update. But the meat and potatoes of this thing is the design alternatives, because we're currently at the concept phase. And so we have two alternatives that I wanted to share with all of you before we kind of step out into the greater public involvement outreach process with the community. So I just want to run the alternatives by you guys, see if there's any fatal flaws, if you have concerns. If not, any flaws. Yeah, then we can move ahead to the next phase. So if you want to go to the next slide there. So I'm just going to give a quick project overview, give some background information, scope, schedule, budget. Like I said, we'll dive into these alternatives, and then I'll step through the different the plan for the next phase of public outreach.
Josh is the finance department tech help.
And if I'm going too fast for this, trying to leave Aaron a little time for his presentation. So if I'm going too fast, just slow me down. Bring it to a halt. We'll do it here. So to start off here, this is the path location map in the downtown area. The red line there is the limits of the new path. And then the blue lines are existing paths. And then the teal are sidewalks that are going to be connecting to the new path in some way. So as you can see, this is it's a missing link here in the downtown trail system. And so it's kind of a critical path to kind of open everything up and make it kind of a regional path. Which, it'll draw people down in the Willamette University area, the hospital, Bush Park. They can make it all the way up to the Civic Center, and then there's no way to cross over Pringle Path without getting up on Commercial Street and going over that way. So there'd be a stretch underneath the Commercial Street Bridge, and then ultimately going underneath the railroad as kind of an underpass structure. And then connecting to kind of where the acid ball is there in Riverfront Park. So this kind of a planning background. This project was identified in the Salem Transportation Plan. It was also part of the Riverfront Parks Master Plan, and it was really, again, identified as critical to the overall spirit of that regional plan. So if you want to go ahead and advance to the next one.
Can I pull a mic for a minute? There's an extra Jerry Frank amphitheater in the middle of it.
Uh-oh. Yeah. We threw this together yesterday, so.
Just so you know.
Last minute, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's an error.
Oh, my gosh, yes, good catch.
So, this is a project that was completed in the area in 2019. It was the Pringle Creek demolition and stream restoration project. On the left side, you can kind of see where the old Boise Cascade mill site foundation structures are on the right side. So we removed all of that and regraded the screen to kind of bring it to a more natural habitat. And then graded that north bank or on the right side to kind of prep it for this this path that we're going to be constructing here. So, and that project was done by OTAC, and we also hired OTAC as our design consultant on this one. So we utilize some of the knowledge that they've acquired on this project to kind of help us with what we're working on now. Let's see. So this is our planning concept plan that we developed. Actually, let me take one, you can leave right there, but to touch on the funding sources. So we of course we have the livability bond, which has allocated $3.5 million to the project. We have URA funding, which is really $400,000. And then we were able to get a federal grant through the Oregon Community Paths Program, which funded the rest at $6 million. So as part of that grant process, when trying to get that awarded, we created this planning concept plan. So we had something really to kind of solidify what we were going to do moving forward. So it's just to kind of going over the general scope of this project. It's going to be 850 feet of 12-foot wide multi-use path. And the idea is there's an existing path kind of on the south end of the Commercial Street Bridge going underneath. And then we're planning on doing like a suspended bridge underneath on the kind of the left side of the Commercial Street Bridge, taking us over to the north bank. Then we'll construct that multi-use path from there, concrete type material all the way up to the rail there, and then build some type of underpass structure going underneath that, and then continuing to head west into the Riverfront Park and tying into the asphalt area there. So that's kind of the high level, and then down below you can kind of see some of the treatments we were planning on incorporating in that, which is we have some overlooks that we're planning on, seat walls, maybe some opportunities for some wall treatments, terrace plantings, and various other enhanced and stormwater type plantings.
Can we go back to the first slide? I know that I've spoken at the Civic Center rehab, and what I'm really hoping that we can have is people that might be at Riverfront and they go underneath the overpass, being able to get to Peace Plaza and the library. And it looks like it would still be sidewalk. And so again, sometimes the problem with entry to Peace Plaza doesn't feel like it's a connected park to me. And I know that we've spoken about this many times. And that I would really like to make sure that people know that they would be able to have a pathway or a sidewalk so that they could from at least from Commercial Street, be able to get all the way from Riverfront with a stroller or, kids in tow, so that we can connect a Peace Plaza. So I don't know if that's at all in this whole pathway.
From what we've scoped for the project, part of that package, it wasn't. It was more focused just on the bridge area.
There is a connection there.
Yeah.
There is.
The 12-foot wide connection.
Okay.
But I think signage would be helpful, wayfinding, so that people say, not there, they need to get to.
Great, thank you very much.
So it should be a part.
Yeah.
It wasn't this one. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, just trying to connect, Peace Plaza just feels like this empty park. You don't know how to get to it, and that's, as you've heard me say.
I know that UD has spent some money to put in wayfinding around town.
Okay,
And so it feels like
That would be fun.
The opportunity to place that matches the style that there is close to the library as well.
I don't know if there's actually some down there in the commercial area already.
And then part of it too is remember the person that was complaining about the bus stop and then people in wheelchairs getting off the bus struggle with getting to the library. There is right now because it's the construction and they have to roll up the hill to get to the path to get to the street crossing, but normally it would be where the flasher lights are. And so I just want to make sure that there's a clear pathway from that walkway to the park. Especially for like wheelchairs, because they may come in from that side to the library.
Okay,
Thank you.
so this is just a 3D rendition of that planning concept. Do you have no idea what those, at least originally what those overlooks kind of look like? So we can go ahead and move past that as well. Oh, as a general plan for the project schedule. We are, like I mentioned earlier, we're in the concept phase right now. So we're part of that first preliminary design phase, just at the front end of that. We expect to get through the plans, design by July of 26. Our goal is an open house, our first open house next month, which is pretty aggressive at this point. That may get pushed to April, but we're kind of gunning for March right now.
An in-person open house?
Yeah, well, I have another slide. I'll step through it a little different, but yeah, it'll be a virtual open house, kind of like an online survey that then ends with an open house, with an in-person open house. We'll have railroad coordination happening for the next year or so, permitting ending in February 27. The final design phase start this August and then end in May 27. And the construction is planned to begin in October of 27. And then December 20. So as far as the funding breakdown goes, I will mention, we have $3.5 million out of the safety and livability bond, 428,000 out of the URA funds, and then the Board and Community Tax Grant, 6 million. So we have a total combined budget at this point, 9.9 million. And our current project estimate is at 9 million. So we have an additional 10% contingency of 900,000. Yeah.
Federal funding and ODOT funding promised, or do we have it?
We have it, yeah. And I had a conversation internally yesterday with you folks. You know, there's just the whole immigration and project. But this project agreement that we've gone through, I have no point in amending it at that point. So that's usually like the opportunity that Franklin still holds. If you don't have agreement or through some type of amendment, they would open something up for something that push that in there. So right now, as far as I know, we're good with that. That's it. Yeah, we'll have to go through the obligation part, but we don't have to amend the contract or the agreement to do that. So
money's not in our hands yet, but it's pretty sure that we'll get it there.
Some checks, isn't it? It's a little slow sometimes.
You guys that you two next to each other.
My question is about the railroad coordination. What does that entail? Are there issues that are popping up?
So, yeah, that's a hot, touchy
I
subject.
figured it probably
Yeah.
Is 1 year optimism.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
We
When I think of Vancouver, for example.
yeah, you never know when you're dealing with the railroad. It's always kind of unknown. But before we got the grant, we hired OTAC, who's part of this design team now. We hired them to make preliminary contact with the rail and just let them know the project's coming. They got design standards, design standards. So the communication started before the grant was awarded. Now that we have a design team on board, now we're at the point where we've hired another sub-consultant, Tom Weiser, who deals with the rail specifically. And he's been reaching out, he's been contacting them, they were sent, those standards again, so. At this point, things seem to be going well, they're just kind of going through the process, we're finishing up on the TSML, type, size, and location of the structure underneath the rail. And as soon as that's completed, which is supposed to happen in the next week or two, then we'll be sending that, and that will be kind of kick off the formal sharing of information with the rail, so they actually have something that they can review and comment on, so. And so, yeah, that's about all I have at this point, and we've given ourselves a year from this point.
The union district, this is not, fortunately, it's more difficult to deal with. So I think it's both on the left. Even so, they go aggressive, but so this should go a little bit smoother than the ones with the.
Okay.
But it still doesn't mean that yours is not too aggressive.
Less likely to get derailed.
Yeah.
This is sad, so. Next time we're separated. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Be like a teacher, no, you have to sit,
Choose new friends.
All right, so here we are. This is the fun part. Path design alternatives. We've developed two alternatives. Option one being what we call an angular style from an architectural standpoint. Option two is more of the curved style.
You're ready?
Yeah, you can go ahead
No.
and move forward. So. So I did want to cover, before we get too much detail, that we can go ahead and leave it here, but I just wanted to share, we created a draft survey that we're gonna share with the public as part of that virtual open house. So we've kind of written up some narrative, and as we get into the, I also wanted to share that with you, so we can kind of take the same perspective as somebody who taking that survey. So just up front to give you an idea of what elements are in both options. We have two potential, both designs are ADA accessible. One major difference between this and the original concept was that kind of the northwest corner of the bridge, the original concept showed a stairwell. And so after talking with our city attorney, head to the commercial,
Great.
Yep, right in that area. Yeah, right at the street connection, originally there was gonna be a stairwell, kind of like similar to what's on the right side. We were originally planning on doing something on the left side as well. But after talking to our city attorney, I think we'd be liable from a civil rights standpoint if we built a stairway and expected disabled folks to head to the north and cross the intersection to the north and come back around. So we kind of changed, that was a major change from the concept plan. So now it's going to be a long ADA ramp from the street connection at the bridge all the way down. And then there was, and then at 3, there's kind of a flat spot, and then it goes back. So it's quite a bit of a elevation difference. So they have a really long ramp. But anyways, both concepts have some version of that ADA ramp. Both alternatives are going to have a 12-foot wide shared use path. Both options will have a pedestrian bridge crossing suspended underneath the Commercial Street Bridge. Right, yep, right in that area. Both will have to have a shelter for the path, and that was one thing with the railroad. Crossing underneath the rail. We're going to have a shelter over the top of the path.
Okay.
And that was probably the main thing that they voiced as their major concerns. That if you're going to be going under this, it has to have a structure of some kind. Technically. So. Ramp from the northwest corner, I just mentioned that. There'll be seating walls for people to gather and rest. There'll be overlooks on both. There'll be retaining walls for the opportunities for wall treatments, pathway lighting, and landscaping. So those are the shared features. And as far as the questions go, as we start getting into the details of this. Question one is what we're gonna pose in the survey. Which overlook location do you prefer? So you'll see on the next one when we get to it. The overlook locations at a different spot based depending on which alternative we're looking at. So the question is which location do you like? And just to let you know up front, none of this is set in stone. We can take features from one and add it to the other and kind of, the idea is we share this with the public, get their input, and then maybe we can make some match and make it.
So this one has got an overlook in that area, kind of the platform that picked it up.
Yeah, the second question would be, which path style do you prefer? That's kind of a big one, and then. After reviewing the two path options, which do you feel would be the best option? Why do you prefer the option of the new Pringle pathway? And then please tell us why you did not like either of the design options. If you did, is there anything else you would like to share about? So there's some write-in opportunities for folks. So with that being said, now we can kind of focus on the specifics. So this is the angular option. And you can kind of see it's got linear type features. It's got angular features. And when we compare it to the next one, you'll see the difference in it. But the idea was it more matches what's around the civic center area. So stepping through the legend there, you can kind of see one is the connection between the riverfront park to the trail. So that's right there at the festival. Item two there is access.
Echo.
Is it?
Basketball's not in the problem.
Okay, Echo. Two, access from Commercial Street Bridge. I mentioned that earlier where the ramp begins for both options. Three, we have accessible overlook. So we have on this one, I mentioned right there at that corner, we have two. We have a kind of a high level one is at the street level. It's a little bit smaller, and then down below is like a larger one. It's got some seat walls there where people could sit there and rest and have lunch, and it's kind of a nice feature that it overlooks the path. There's also a seating area or a accessible overlook all the way past the railroad to the west, down by the connection point there. So that's common to both alternatives. Seat walls at a couple different locations. You have the four there west of the rail, that section there. There's a seating area kind of midway between it right there. And then over there by the overlook, there's another opportunity for people to rest. Terrace plantings throughout. The art wall could be, there's a 3D rendering right after this. Most of this will be able to see the wall treatments a little bit better, but along the face of that, that ADA ramp would be an opportunity to put some art wall there. Protective cover of the railroad trestle. We don't know exactly what that looks like right now, but we just know that we're going to have to accommodate it somehow and probably be more of a linear type of architectural structure based on the scheme. And then 8, there's an opportunity for potential future pedestrian bridge. And so the city now owns that property to the south. And so at some point, that may be developed for another.
Is that where that, like a water tower, or there's some 3D structure? Okay.
Is there any other path connection further down the bank?
Down that way?
Yeah.
Not that I know of.
It's an old rail.
The TSP and the park system plan both propose a Mall Street Trail in that direction, but there is no existing facilities.
All right, we don't have much time, so I'm going to speed up a little bit here. So here's the rendering. You can kind of see the overlooks a little bit clearer there. See how how impactful that ADA ramp is down there, but. So yeah, the main feature of this whole thing is where those overlooks are located, and then the architectural style being linear. Jump to the next one. So here's the curvy style, which kind of matches the Riverfront Park motif a little bit more. Yeah, that's the primary overlook is a little different than it's right there in the middle. And again, you know, not to say we couldn't do something similar to this on the linear portion, you know, linear style. So, but we didn't want to have, you know, 6 different path alternatives. So we do have an opportunity to move things around. Going through the legend again, we have same connection point, access to Commercial Street Bridge, the same. Like you just pointed out there, Kelly, that third one, the accessible overlook is right there. There's also one, yeah, and then the one there to the west of the rail, similar to the other alternative is another accessible overlook point. Seat walls are kind of intermixed throughout there. Again, there's going to be terrace plantings, opportunity for wall treatments on the face of that ADA ramp. Again, a protective cover at the railway trestle. I was kind of envisioned that would be more like a circular structure. Again, haven't fleshed that out completely, but it'd be something kind of unique, I think, as far as what that would look like.
Concrete?
No, trying to keep it open so you know you can still see the creek and everything.
Okay.
Maybe a fencing of some kind, or I'm not quite sure yet on that. So you can jump to the 3D rendering on that one. So yeah, so the options are pretty close in price. You know, the option 2 is a little bit more expensive. It has a little bit more retaining wall associated with it, but same ballpark. Our city construction budget is at 6 million, so both fall underneath what we had budgeted. So, and then next slide is our next steps. So we had an internal project meeting back in January. That was we all met folks within the engineering group and parks and planning and Brian and Alan. And so we all kind of discussed on what a good mode of outreach would be. And so the idea is that we're going to have kind of an initial focus group outreach before we have that online in-person open house. And of course, first on the docket was this group here. Again, just to make sure that internally everybody's okay to move forward. And then I'm going to meet with the tribe early March, and then the Parks and Rec board in March as well. And then as soon as those folks are contacted and project discussed with them, and we'd like to move into the online survey, which I see in a 2-week kind of online advertisement. And then we go right into the open house at the tail end of that. Then the idea is we gather all that input that we get from that outreach, meet again with the internal group, try to incorporate all those comments and choose a preferred alternative, and then come back to this group, share what we've kind of found at this point. And then once everybody's good there, then we would continue with the rest of the design. Because right now the design's kind of on hold until we know exactly what alternative we want to get ready. And then there'd still be some outreach and, you know, kind of the dog and pony show for any other small groups. And then where it's about the 60% plan one, getting ready to you know, get into detailed design, the final design. Like have one more open house just to share again with the public what the preferred alternative is, and then there'll be opportunity for some other commenting on other features that are more developed in that. So that's the plan. I know I hit you all with a lot of information here. But so I guess my basic question would be, do see a reason why we can't move ahead and reach out to the public at this point with these two options as they're shown. You know, if there's something that you guys see in these options that are like, well, we don't wanna show that to the public, then have to track of it, so.
I don't know, that's a different feedback. I'm sure we all have our own opinions about what we like and alternative wise, whatever.
I have one, the first thought that struck me when I look at them, is there one over the other that has a calming effect on bike and motorcycle, I mean, electric bike traffic? Because I think of like the rest of the water park, right, the long straight stretches, people just fly down those. But all of the features and attractions that you would go, you know, sit at or spend time are either set off of the path quite a ways, or they're in that area where everything's circular and you can't maintain those speeds. But this looks like a racetrack,
Yeah, I think if you do
and you've got the,
this one with the overlook right in the middle, you're gonna get people congregating and that might slow people down.
well, I don't know, I want to rely on crowds being. Hey, guys. Thinking that.
No, I
So I'm curious if there's anything, one design over the other that,
Speed cushions.
I'm not, yeah.
No, I haven't really thought of, the struggle is we really don't have much space to work with, I mean, to meander people or something like that. So. I answer to that, I think it would be hard to slow people down, really, I mean, if they're blasting through, I mean, they're gonna have to go through, I'm looking at different overlook spots, and then there'd be people in the middle, either that, or there'd be people over by
Yeah.
closer to the.
I like the look of the curb, I like the overlook on the curb over the angular. But the overlook also, I think it has the stairs dump right there in the middle where people are gonna be like peak speeds. You know, and the ADA ramps. I don't know where it dumps on the curb one. I guess it's the same as the angular one, like the ADA ramp exits right in commercial. Anyway, that's the one thought that I had.
We'll take back and have to, I know the latest architect on the team has a lot of experience with trail planning, so I think they could probably help come with some ideas as well.
Yeah, and when that virtual open house happens, you know, by all means, right in, and we're gonna take all that information and go to Amazon and see.
May I ask a question? What is this material?
That hasn't been totally fleshed out. I think it's probably gonna be some type of concrete, some kind of, low maintenance.
Thank
You know, whatever, something like that.
The only question I have, sorry, is any of the design going to impact the development that's going to be right next to it? Because as I understood, they were gonna try to also incorporate conjoining some of the pathway, whether that be by stairs or something. Or are they just waiting until this decision's made and then they'll go from there for their design?
Tori Bamford is.
Yes.
Is on our internal project team, so I'm sharing all this information with him.
Okay, then he'd communicate with.
Yeah, I mean, it's been brought up, I don't know if you could
Yeah.
possibly go back to that, maybe one of the renderings might be better, it's just.
I see the demarcation on one of them, that it was like property to be developed. But I just wondered if there's any discussion about the pathways the city's putting in to make sure that it's connecting with what the developer was already, they had some pre-designed plans. And it indicated when I saw those that there was going to be some connection to the pathway that the city's doing. And so I think that might be important to know if they've got some design for connecting so that we can make sure that it is going to be able to connect.
Yeah, we'll continue to have conversations with them. There's not a whole lot of real estate in there. And so the question will be, you know, if we did try to accommodate some type of special connection on their end, they'd be closer to the rail. You'd have to have another retaining wall and ramp down from that area, heading back and connecting, you know, so it'll be a balance, like, do we want to have a connection directly to that development and take up some of the green space and maybe some of the seating.
Right.
Chairs.
Yeah,
Or doesn't, I mean, in my opinion, they do have good access right out there at commercial street.
and that's kind of where, when I saw the design, it was like they were sort of expecting people to be on the sidewalk and then come maybe into, because they're gonna have some retail.
Mhm.
And so then it would be from that retail space then into the pathway. So I think it's just a question worth asking, to be sure that if there's something in their plan, that you can see so that you make sure that they're not pre-planning and then, uh-oh, how we're gonna connect
Right.
the people that are gonna live there and the businesses that are gonna be there. And I don't know how far in their design they are, or, you know.
I think they have, I think there's a point where they can share some things, and Tori's brought that up previously, so I'll include them in some of this. All that we just time to get them. together.
Or at least just have an idea what it would be so that you can, whenever you present it to an open house, then you can say, this is the connection.
Sounds good.
I know we're really close on time, but we're okay delaying the Silverton Road update next week.
Do you know the authorization for that?
Yeah.
Or is it just an update?
I can blow through it pretty quickly if you're willing. But
3 minutes or less?
yeah.
I'm ready, I've already looked at the pictures.
Yeah.
I did too.
Just real quick, we good to, you know, hold on.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, those look really cool.
Excited for that. It's gonna be great.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I do need to switch it. Yes.
So while she's pulling it up real quick, I'll kind of recap the project. I've been here before, but it's pavement rehabilitation on Silverton Road. Coupled with signal replacement work, additional head crossings. Restriping the roadway after the paving to accommodate bike lanes and a center turn lane. So it's kind of my second slide already, Kylie. Sorry. There you go. So that's kind of the gist of the project. Jump to the next one is really just a big strip map. It's really hard to read. If somebody wants to dive into that, I actually have a big one here if you want to stay late and look at it. Jumping forward. So the 3 ped crossings that are going in with the project, as a reminder, there's a new one in front of the Marion County Health and Human Services Facility there by the fairgrounds. There's a new one at Sedona, which is just to the west of Lansing. That's funded by Safer Routes to Schools funding. And then there's also one on 17th Street in front of the Jackman Lawn Building. If you recall, we've talked about that in the past. That was negotiated into the project in exchange for the right of way that we needed from the fairgrounds property. That's actually the photo on the right. It's nearly finished. Some of the crossing components for the push buttons haven't been installed yet, but the rest of the improvements are there.
Good job, Siddleman.
So this jump into the pedestrian crossing at Sedona. This is kind of a new development, the oak tree. You kind of see there, you've all just received an email while we're sitting in this meeting about that tree. It's slated to come down now in March. That's kind of a new development that we weren't aware of during design. We've worked with Urban Forester and they've determined that the health of the tree declined to the point where it needs to be removed. So with that, we're looking to construct with the project, or basically add into the project, the missing sidewalk there where you kind of see your cursor. So that tree was literally like 2 feet from the curb line. It's been a missing link for a long time. It was heavily discussed during the design phase, and we've kind of chosen, since the tree was there, to make the north side of Silverton Road kind of the accessible path, knowing that this was a challenge, but the situation's changed at this point. So it's where we're headed. And a bigger project wise, project status, we're a little over a quarter done with the whole project. Just a reminder, the speed limit is still reduced to 25 miles an hour. Lots of ongoing lane closures shifting around. Another thing to point out is the state fair. We have the contract set up where the contractor is not allowed for 3 full weeks during the fair. So it's almost a week prior, after.
What's the estimated time of completion?
They are hoping to have most of the work done by the fair, but I'm a little nervous that there's gonna be some stuff lingering out there. So They will definitely go after the fair. It's just what does that look like, whether or not the paving will be done? And will be breaking phase or whether they'll still phase.
I think the big thing we wanted to share was the health of that tree now, but there may be some public response to that tree going down. Or
Appreciate
what it
that.
looks like you're going through within the sidewalks. And
Yeah, Darren said Mylan just sent out a message about several trees that are significant trees that are in the plans for March and April.
Yeah, this is
The removal, okay.
It's gonna be so much safer for so many people. Good work. Are we done?
The only last thing in just 10 seconds is we're gonna be issuing bonds next month. For counselors, you should see our preliminary official statement in your inboxes today or tomorrow for your review. And then it'll actually get posted, I think it's scheduled on March 13th, and then we're gonna be opening bids March 24th. So we'll communicate with this group after that happens to let you know what the result is.
Best guess?
Hillsborough had some really good luck, about a month ago, so I'm waiting for a similar.
Some of them.
Anybody, anything else before we part ways? Great job, everybody.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks.
on that list.